Welcome back. It's 25 minutes to 2 o'clock. 1976 struggle hero then Sechaba Montsitsi has succumbed to COVID-19 complications. This morning, the Health Minister, Dr. Joe Phaahla, announced his passing. Montsitsi was among the leaders of the Soweto Students' Representative Council, which planned and organized and led the march on the 16th of June in 1976. I'm now joined by former Soweto uprising student leader Enos Ngutshane, who at the time, 1976, he was a leader at the Naledi High School in Soweto. Enos, good afternoon, and thank you very much for giving us your time this afternoon on the Midday View. When you heard the news of the passing of then Sechaba Montsitsi last night, what went through your mind? What was the first thing that popped in your mind?
Good afternoon, Dan, and also good afternoon to the listeners. We got the news just immediately after 21 hours last night from one of our colleagues, Moyane. When I saw that message, I could not believe it. I was a bit shattered and a bit confused because we knew that Comrade Dan was admitted at the hospital and we're getting reports that he was improving and he was going to be discharged very soon. But when the news landed yesterday, I was totally confused and, shattered to hear that he has passed on.
When was the last time you had any contact with him? I know that post-democracy in 94, he went to Parliament and he worked in different parts of public life.
Yes, I've had, ongoing discussions with Comrade Dan at the Freedom Acre in Soweto. We also phoned each other from time to time just to find out, what was happening with, life. And also when there were plans, for example, in terms of June 16 this year, I had phoned him and we, discussed the plans around the program itself, which was going to be led by the city of Joburg.
Now, June 16, 1976 has been described as a political watershed moment in the country in terms of the struggle for freedom, in terms of the struggle against banned education, struggle for equal education. Dan Montsitsi is one of those names when you go back, when I cast my mind back, I think of two other student leaders. Those three were like the names we used to know a lot at the time. Sechaba Montsitsi was the other one, then we had Khotso Siatlulu. How critical was Dan's role at the time? Because we know that later on, I think he was arrested in June 1977 and he was badly tortured.
Yes, you are so right, Dan. Dan Montsitsi took over, the reins of the Soweto Student Representative Council at a very difficult era. At that time, all of us were, hunted down by the regime, and some had crossed the border, as you know, like Sechaba Montsitsi, Siatlulu, and the others. And therefore, his responsibility was to come in as the leader of the Soweto Student Representative Council and consolidate the organization and sort of give guidance on the way forward. So I think he did a very good job, stunningly, and until he was arrested, as you say, in June 1977.
Yeah, and at the time, as you say, it was a very difficult time because the leaders who had started the SSRC had fled the country, and others had been arrested. Yourself were on the run from the police. So the Soweto Student Representative Council needed a very strong leader. But my recollection, he was a very quiet kind of a leader. If you compared him to the charismatic and the Sechaba Montsitsi who take on the stage and really get his message across, Dan Montsitsi was a quieter one, but very effective leader.
Oh yes, Dan was very humble, soft-spoken, as you know, but he was a very, very effective leader. He was brave at the same time. And therefore, at that time, I remember we were targeting the urban Bantu councils in Soweto. He led that struggle very well. I remember we were gathered around that building in Soweto in where he issued an instruction that we should just storm the building. and we were there. We stomped the UPC building. As you remember, we used to call them the Useless Boys Choir. So we had a leader here who was very focused, who came in and he knew what he wanted to achieve in terms of the student movement politics.
Yeah, we were all high school students at the time in 1976, still very young, very considered by many as children, school children. How does the country today honor a man of Dan Montsitsi's caliber and contribution to the struggle? Because that generation is now 60-something years old and getting on in life. How do you think today South Africa should be honoring the legacy of Dan Sechaba Montsitsi?
Jen had a broad understanding of, our democratic revolution. Though humble, though laid back, but he has produced a number of other leaders. Leaders who are solid in terms of transformation in South Africa, in terms of understanding the truly non-racial, non-sexist, democratic South Africa that we are busy, shaping. And therefore, he should be remembered as one of those leaders who led, the student movement through difficult times. He went to Parliament, as you know, contributed a lot in the transformation of that institution, but he did not sit back when he left Parliament and said, my days are over, I'm now on pension. He came back, he continued to mobilize us and to mobilize the youth as well, who are future leaders. And therefore, I think he must be remembered as one of those shining beacons, in our struggle. He must be remembered as a stalwart who really dedicated his life to the liberation of this country.
Thank you very much, Enos Ngutshane, reflecting there on the contribution of now the late Dan Sechaba Montsitsi, one of the 1976 struggle heroes.